My name is Dan Woods and I am the Northern Sales Manager for Read.co.uk. I don't think there's anybody in this room that hasn't faced various recruitment difficulties in today's market. So applications are down, and the applications that come through are maybe not of the quality we'd hope that they were. So I think we find ourselves scratching our heads, trying to understand how we capture the attention of talent, and then when we do, how we actually appeal to them. So we're quite lucky at Read.co.uk. We've got an audience that we can do a bit of research with. So we surveyed over 2,000 passive and active job seekers, and we also talked to over 250 UK hiring managers. And we looked at the topics of salary transparency and its impact on applications, and then how candidate motivations have changed since the start of the cost of living crisis. So in this session, we'll explore what employers can do to attract top talent, how adopting a people-centric attraction strategy can have a positive impact on recruitment efforts, and then we'll finish off with some key takeaways. So let's start with, if we dare, a look at the current job market. So this is the doomy bit. We're in the midst of an energy crisis. Inflation is at a 14-year high, and we're coming out the back of a pandemic. So there's a lot going on, and there's quite a serious feeling of economic uncertainty. Over the last few months, UK unemployment has fallen to its lowest level in 48 years. So it means there's more job openings currently than there are people out of work. However, our data shows that there's been a 7% drop in the number of jobs posted. So that could be an indicator that that post-pandemic jobs boom has come to an end. So again, dare we ask, what's next? So there's this undeniable level of uncertainty and in a very volatile market at the minute. So we're aware of the high inflation, and the reports show that UK wages are lagging behind when it comes down to that increased rate of inflation. So many workers aren't receiving pay rises, and with the current cost of living crisis on everyone's mind, financial stresses are growing, and they're very real. So we weren't surprised to see that 25% of workers were considering leaving their job in the next 12 months. So does that mean that candidates are on the move? Well, the COVID-19 pandemic changed all of our lives in many, many ways, and work was no exception. The way we work and the place that work holds in our lives has changed. The pandemic encouraged people to ask themselves, what makes me happy, and am I truly satisfied? And the answers to those questions often have urged people to make change. So as I mentioned, 25% of people are thinking about leaving their jobs in the next 12 months. So we didn't think we were wrong in considering that was based around the cost of living crisis. People wanted increased salaries, but actually, when you looked at it, 29% of candidates said, or people surveyed said, that it was down to an increased salary, but actually it was 30% of people surveyed said it was down to the fact that they just didn't enjoy the job that they did. And then another key element was the fact that culture just wasn't where people wanted it to be. So of the 29% of those that were considering leaving their jobs and doing so in hopes of a better salary, when we looked at the demographic breakdown, it showed quite an interesting story. So people between the ages of 18 to 34 were most likely to leave their jobs in search of a higher pay, with 45% saying they'd leave a role in search of a better salary, followed by workers from Black, Asian and mixed ethnicity backgrounds, and then women. So while not everyone is motivated by money, due to the crisis, it looks like salary is still at the forefront of candidates' minds when considering whether they should stay or go. So if we've got 25% of people that are looking to move, that leaves 75% of people not considering leaving their positions. So for employee retention, that's great news. For talent acquisition, not so great. So when we asked workers, why aren't you looking to change jobs? 46% of people said that they're happy in their current role and they were satisfied. 37% said that they value that job security. And you can't blame them given the cost of living crisis. People want that security and the confidence of staying in their current roles. And 18% said that they were just too nervous to go for a new role right now. So now we've identified that there are people out there to attract, and how do we get them to apply? So we've got to consider what good looks like to us, and we've got to consider what is important to the business. As we know, talent acquisition is not a one-size-fits-all exercise. So different demographics respond and engage with benefits, words, language, and perks in different ways. So we've got to be thinking of all these elements when we create a job ad. So if we kick off with employee benefits, 42% of job seekers were more likely or would only apply for roles that list the benefits in the job ad. But then on the other hand, 27% of employers actually thought that leaving out benefits in a job ad wouldn't have any effect or any impact, negative or positive, on the applications they receive. But what we're going to see throughout this presentation, and we've talked about it before, is that candidates value transparency. And it starts with including a section on benefits in your ads. So like I said, demographics respond differently. So in this case, knowing the benefits is of vital importance to disabled candidates, so when they're deciding whether to apply for a role. Whether that's down to needing increased support or health plans, illness or health days or wellbeing perks, it's important for them to be aware what's being offered with the role. And we can also see that younger candidates also want to know the benefits. Younger generations expect much more from their employers than just a decent salary. They care about culture, they care about support and progression opportunities too. So in order to attract that demographic, we've got to think about advertising our company benefits. So what perks, we ask ourselves. So we asked respondents what they wanted. So overall, when we asked workers to rank the key employee rewards and benefits, flexible working was cited as the most attractive perk with 62%. And then followed by employer contributed. It's easy for me to say. Employer contributed pension and then remote working options. So many of us have absolutely grown to value and enjoy flexibility. I know I have, whether that's starting later to nip to the gym or drop the kids at school, or finishing early to pick the kids up from school, or even cook a meal. It's no surprise that they feature quite heavily. And beyond that, mental health support and career development programs were also quite high in terms of regard. So considering this, it was no surprise that 45% of candidates said flexible and flexible working options were the most attractive words in a job ad. So no surprise at all. So not offering flexible working options will deter diverse candidates. So we really don't want to do that, because having a diverse workforce is essential for success. Diversity increases creativity, productivity, it encourages different ways of thinking, and it brings a wide range of perspectives to your organisation. The stats earlier said that this is pretty high on everyone's agenda. So it's really important to cater to diverse demographics to ensure that we aren't closing ourselves off to quality candidates. So overall, 45% of candidates were less likely to apply for roles that don't mention flexibility or remote working. But our research tells us that minority groups are even more swayed by this perk. 63% of disabled people would be less likely to apply for a role that doesn't. 59% of 18 to 34-year-olds and 56% of Black, Asian and mixed ethnicity would all be put off by a job ad that doesn't mention flexibility. So all in all, if your company has flexible working policies, you need to shout about them. You need to make sure that job seekers know about them. And if your company doesn't have flexible working practices, then it's worth considering implementing them, if your industry allows. if flexible working is the new normal, then absolutely we want to be moving with the times. We talked about career development opportunities, and we talked about them being one of the top 5 perks. So when we surveyed companies around this, only 18% of organisations said that they had a career development plan for their employees. So there was a real imbalance there when it came down to that. So it's an obvious gap in the market, and it's something that we could definitely be leaning on to attract quality talent. Not only do candidates want development opportunities, but companies have also reported the benefits of doing that. So they see an increased level of employee engagement and productivity, as well as lower churn rates. So combined with that, another advantage is that of that internal career programme is that current employees are set up with the necessary skills to make that move. So that benefits both the employer and the employee, and it builds trust, loyalty, and ultimately satisfaction. Not advertising or promoting your career progression opportunities in your job ads will absolutely put those off from Black, Asian and mixed ethnicity backgrounds. 31% of 18 to 34-year-olds said career development opportunities were one of the 3 key factors when looking for a job. Within this demographic, you have those who've freshly graduated, you've got school leavers, and those looking to switch their jobs and try something new. But they want to know that they're going to be nurtured and trained and develop within the roles to grow and progress in their careers. As for Black and Asian candidates, 25% of Black job seekers and 24% of Asian job seekers cited career progression opportunities as a top factor when looking for a role. So we're talking about demographics that historically have not been afforded the same opportunities as their white counterparts, and now they're looking for roles that they know will give them the opportunity to progress, and that there's a promotional framework not based on bias. Another advantage of cultivating a diverse workforce is that it allows for people to feel comfortable and be their true selves in their roles. And when people feel accepted, they're more inclined to stay with an organisation. Diversity also has a positive impact on talent acquisition. And what we saw from our survey is that minority groups were attracted to companies that advertise diverse or diversity. So women, LGBTQ, disabled, Black, Asian, minority ethnic people were all attracted to the word diversity, more so than their non-minority counterparts. So making sure that you show this aspect of your business is key in attracting diverse talent. Following on from this, women are more likely to seek collaborative and supportive environments than men. Women are 9% more likely to apply for a role that discusses teamwork, and they're 14% more likely to apply for a role that includes the word support. So this is really helpful to think about when you consider representation in your organisation, and more so at managerial level, where historically there are more men than women. So it's clear that language in your job ads can have quite a profound impact on whether you attract or deter diverse talent. So we need to ensure that we're using gender-neutral pronouns, we're not using certain terms that could intimidate or put off applications, tech ninja, for example. But what I want to focus on here is the language when it comes to salary. We will look at the impact of displaying salary and what that has on applications on the next slide. But when we look at language, we asked candidates what would most put them off in a job ad. So respondents said words like competitive, negotiable, and dependent on experience. People want to get paid when they work, even more so in the current economic climate. So they want to know where they stand financially and really whether the role is a viable option before they even embark on the journey of application. We talked about displaying a salary and the impact it can have on applications. So our data at read.co.uk shows that job ads that display a salary will receive 37% more applications than ads that don't. So immediately you're giving yourself a greater choice of candidates because you're providing them with the information that they want and need. On top of this, 78% of candidates will be less likely to or would not apply for a role that does not display a salary. So Think of all the talent that you could be putting off by writing salary competitive as opposed to disclosing an actual figure. So it's really important. All candidates value pay transparency, but particularly diverse candidates of different demographics. So here we've got a breakdown of those less likely to apply for a role that doesn't display a salary. So black candidates, young candidates, and female, disabled, and LGBTQ+ candidates value pay transparency. They're all core demographics, and your company can benefit from the skills, as we mentioned earlier, that they bring and their way of thinking. Overall, diverse candidates bring value and innovation to your organisation. So spend time with the stats, consider what people want, consider what they value, and what they want to see in a job ad in order to put yourself in the best light possible when it comes down to attracting them. We talk about moving towards a people-centric approach. What do we mean? So people make up your organisation, and I think we can all think of numerous employees and colleagues that contribute to the overall success of our companies. So we've got to move towards creating a talent attraction strategy that puts people at the core. So focus on who you want, the people that you already have, and then nurture both attraction and retention to create strong and people-centric strategies. So we need to think about people when we create a talent acquisition plan. Talent acquisition isn't just about setting out a list of what our businesses need. It's about responding to what candidates want, and it's about working out how we can sell ourselves in a way that top talent will actually buy into. So talent acquisition teams absolutely need to work collaboratively and closely with people teams. That way we can really understand what people want and what's working and what isn't working. There's information there from onboarding, satisfaction surveys, exit interviews that can absolutely aid us in attraction strategies, and it's important that we share it. We will go on to see just how important people are to an organisation, but I think we can agree that it's people that make the culture. And as we've discovered already, culture's incredibly important, or an incredibly important element of the company. We spend day in and day out with the same people, so our work relationships are pretty unique. And we get to a point where, us and our teammates, we create the culture. So it was no surprise that 35% of candidates said that, or respondents said that they would leave a role if someone from their team was leaving. So it shows how key people are in making sure that strategy caters to them. It's an absolute necessity. I suppose we're an era of informed candidates. I would say we're a nation of researchers. There's not many things that we do now without maybe doing a Google search or something prior to that. If we go on holiday, we've been through the hotel, we've walked down the beach, we've done all sorts of different things before we've even got on a plane. So job seekers are no different. So creating employee advocates is incredibly important in this situation. So once you've incorporated all these things, we've got satisfied, fairly paid, diverse workforce with great management, we've got the dream, we then need to create the advocates that go along with it. What we see now is that job seekers are researching companies before they even think about making an application. So research says that 87% of candidates will research the company before deciding whether to apply or not. They'll see a job, they'll look at your company, they'll look at the benefits, the gender pay gap, and reviews before they even click apply. So 43% will look at your company page and see what you offer, how you operate, and what they can gather about you from what you include. 41% do a more broad Google search, and 25% will look at reviews of the company. This surprised me actually, but over a quarter of job seekers will actually reach out and talk to current employees. So it's really important that we create employee advocates. And if we do manage to create employee advocates, where they're perpetuating and echoing our company messaging and culture through their own platforms, off their own backs, then we've got a really natural, organic and powerful way of building and showcasing our employer brands. I was going to say, if you've kept your eye on the news recently, I mean, it's so in your face. You've got absolutely no chance of missing it, have you? So, but if you have, you'll likely know that another change from government is around reporting gender pay gap. So now businesses with over 500 employees are legally required to report on their gender pay gap, as opposed to previous legislation which enforced companies with over 250 employees to report on it. So not only is this a step back in terms of equality and accountability, but it's also a step back for transparency. I said earlier on that candidates will research your gender pay gap, and the research showed us that 95% of candidates would not consider working for a company that did not have a fair gender pay gap, or if there were no details on how it would be improved. Candidates want to be able to easily find your gender pay gap report, and when they find it, they don't expect it to be perfect. But what they do want to know is you're taking steps towards cultivating a fair and equal work environment, and they're interested in knowing what you're going to do to improve that gender pay gap, and also see your equal opportunities roadmap as well. So at this point in the strategy, we'll have worked incredibly hard to create a culture that people enjoy. So we've got to sell that culture, as I said before. So the great thing about employee advocates is that any messaging from them is much more natural than coming from you saying, work for us, it's great, or someone saying they genuinely enjoy working here, and I think you will too, is a much stronger message. And what we see here is that 46%, it's the people actually is cited as the factor that people enjoy the most about their current workplace, followed by feeling trusted in the role and feeling valued at work. So if people enjoy these elements, we need to talk about them. It's always, when we do our surveys, the people are always the thing that comes up. Even in, if people are moving on, one of the thing that people most miss is the people. So it's incredibly important that we talk about that. Another way to utilise employee advocates to your advantage is through employee referral schemes. So there's loads of advantages to referral schemes. Not only do you end up with a workforce that's like-minded in work ethic and values, but you also cut down on the time it takes to fill a position. You increase sentiment and trust with current employees. Essentially, you're saying to them, we trust you. This is your recommendation. Great, we trust your judgment. But as it stands, only 11% of businesses use referral schemes to attract candidates, which is pretty shocking when we know how successful referral schemes are. So at read.co.uk, we revised our referral scheme back in July. So we've increased referral payments by 100% for most roles and by 300% for more senior roles. So since making that change in mid-July, we've seen a 300% increase in the number of successful placements made from referrals, which is a promising uptake. And it's not just us reaping the rewards of a well-structured, promoted employee referral scheme. Referral schemes save money on advertising and interview time. You're not starting from scratch. And research also shows that 82% of businesses that use referral schemes rated it as the best source and offering the best ROI. So it's an incredibly powerful tool that we should be utilising. The other thing is that people that come via referral schemes tend to stay at the company for longer, on average over 4 years. So where do we go from here? Well, what we're working with today is a market where candidates are more informed. They expect more transparency, more benefits, flexibility, inclusion, the list goes on. Candidates can afford to be picky, and they know what they deserve, they know what they want, and they're not willing to compromise on it. So it just seems to get harder and harder, doesn't it? So businesses need to ask themselves, how can we change the core of our strategy to relate to quality candidates, and how can we ensure that our approach reaches diverse and talented candidates? So we've tried, there's a lot, obviously there's a lot in here. So we've tried to come away with some key takeaways that you could potentially use following on from this. So ensure that your job ad is inclusive and attractive. So we know that salary is a top priority for job seekers, but it's important to make your job, or it's important for your job ad to incorporate as many positives as possible. We know keywords like flexibility, benefits, people want that healthy work-life balance. To explain what you can offer candidates and what your work environment's like, people really want to feel for that. As well as making your job ad attractive, steer clear of using words that may alienate or put different groups of people off, and just make your job ads as appealing as possible. Show, don't tell. Use employer advocates to your advantage. So remember, people attract people. Job seekers classed the people as one of the most valued factors in the workplace. So use it to your advantage and make sure that talent acquisition and people teams are absolutely aligned so you get your messaging absolutely on point. Companies that are more open and transparent are much more attractive to job seekers when it comes down to overall culture and success. And then cater for the informed candidate. You know, when people look for jobs, they're arming themselves with information. They're talking to current employees. They're doing some quite serious reviewing before they make any decisions about what they do. So review your company profile pages. See how easy it is to find your gender pay gap report. And also talk about improvements that you intend to make in and around that. Taking that approach will absolutely be valued by job seekers. That's it from me. Thanks for listening. I hope it was of some use, and we are around on various tables. We've got a stand just outside there, and yeah, have a great day.